Hello, it's me, Steady Eddie, from the YouTube, and today I'm doing something which I haven't done in a while, which is a Templar PvP build. I haven't done any PvP builds on YouTube, at least, for the last year or so, I think. But I wanted to share this one because I've been playing again, and Templar is probably a class that people are struggling a lot with this patch. Let's make one thing clear. I've probably clickbaited you in the thumbnail and title. I don't know in what manner yet. I haven't decided, but my honesty as a person and my morals. No, I'm being dramatic. Let's just be honest, though. Templar is pretty terrible. This patch doesn't have much damage, and that's the problem it has. Still has a lot of healing power and is really good as a support build right now. A lot of Templar mains or people that play Templar a lot have just turned their guy into basically a heal bot for their group. So let's be clear about one thing. This build that I've got here is a damage PvP build, but you're not going to be playing this solo in Cyrodiil because it's just not going to be consistently viable. I'm sure you will be able to get some 1v3s with this build against some terrible players, but don't let that get to your ego. That doesn't make this build good. That makes those players bad. This is your ESO ego check. So let's just be clear about that. You're going to be playing this build with a group. It has probably the most damage I could get. Or I don't know, killing power maybe is a better word. But the whole thing has drawbacks. The whole thing has sacrifices you have to make. And it's a Rangeplar, which traditionally I've hated for probably the same reasons as a lot of other people, which is that it's kind of clunky. Dark Flare is an ability that can be bashed and all these kind of things. But we'll get into that. We'll get into the functionality of the build. We'll get into what works and what doesn't, and why I believe this is probably the more viable out of Templar builds. So without further ado, let's get into the sets, get into the skills. I'll do the build as quickly as possible. I did just take a video recording that was 25 minutes long. I'll try not to make this 25 minutes long. That's why I'm re-recording it now. I want it to be like 12 minutes max. So let's get into it. Back bar, Wretched Vitality, Sword and Shield, Defending Sturdy. Front bar, Way of the Fire, or Way of Fire, whatever it's called, with an Inferno Staff for the increased single target damage. You want this sharpened with a weapon and spell damage glyph. I've gone Marking. You could go Sea Serpent's Coil if you wanted. I think because we're on a Rangeplar, I wanted a bit more mobility, but Sea Serpents would be a lot more damage. The armor from Marking is also pretty nice. You could go Death Dealers here if you wanted. Kind of up to you. All of them are viable. All of them have drawbacks and advantages over the others in some way, shape or form. Monster set, I'm going Balorg. Because we're a Rangeplar, we are using Meteor, and 200 ult on Meteor it adds quite a lot of damage with Balorg. If you go Sea Serpents, go Bloodspawn here. If that's the more sort of stat dense option, but again, I want the mobility, and so I've decided to go Marking with Balorg. I've gone 3 heavy, 3 light, 1 medium. Now, I tried 5 medium, but the problem is that you end up having to put a tri-recovery glyph on your jewelry. At the moment, I have 3 spell damage glyphs. These should be all infused, by the way. I've got 2 healthy at the moment. At the moment, with 3 heavy and 3 light, you're able to go 3 spell damage glyphs. But with medium armor, I had to go 1 recovery glyph, which ended up... It meant that I essentially had the same spell damage, but I had less incoming healing because the heavy armor passives give you extra healing, and I had... I had less resistances as well, sorry. So I was overall less tanky. You do have a bit more damage with medium because you have that insane passive for crit damage. However, I do still think we have enough killing power with 3 heavy, 3 light, 1 medium, and we have more healing. So I decided to go with this. But if you want to go the 5 medium just for the damage, then go for it. The stat sheet, I'm not going to buff up. It's kind of difficult to buff up because Wretched Vitality only procs up in combat. But you're going to want 30k health. Get to 30k health, put the rest into Magicka. That's it. You're going all triglyphs here. And sorry, you're going impen here as well. All impen apart from the chest is reinforced. I've got some like sturdy here or something like that. Just because I haven't got enough transmutes yet to fix it. So yeah, all impenetrable. And you want to get to 30k health and put the rest in Magicka. If your Magicka's like 21k, that's fine. That's just normal now. That's what the normal amount is. You need 30k health because otherwise you're going to get one shot by Nightblade. Your Magicka recovery with all the buffs goes up to about 2.1 or 2.2k. With Wretched Vitality, CP, and also a few other things. It goes up to like 2.1 or 2.2k, I think, without continuous attack as well. So you have more than enough. Stamina recovery goes up to about 1.5 or 6k, and you need that for because you're running Vigor and also Crushing Weapon, which we'll get onto in a bit. Your spell damage with everything goes up to about 6.2k without continuous attack. So, I mean, that's just a good number. We are High Elf, and we are using the Apprentice Spell Damage Mundus. We have enough Magicka recovery and resource management to not have to use the Atronach Mundus, which means you get the spell damage buff from High Elf, and you get the spell damage from the Apprentice, and we have 3 spell damage jewelry. That's what running Wretched Vitality allows us to do. If you are another race, Khajiit would probably be pretty good. Dark Elf would be good. Breton would be good, but you'll be over sustaining and you'll have you'll have less damage. But I mean, you know, there's going to be points where you're going to want to spam on the Zed. It's not that bad. It's pretty good. It's fine. I wouldn't stress. I wouldn't race change for this. Basically, I wouldn't race change. Especially because Jab's Templar will probably be better again next patch. In which case Breton will probably be stronger again. We're going Jewels of Misrule. Smoke Bear Haunch is obviously better, but it's really expensive. If you want cheap version of this, Jewels of Misrule, it gives health, Magicka recovery, and stamina recovery. I've got 2 minutes left, so if you look at my stats in 2 minutes and they're terrible, that's why. Vampire Stage 3, we're using Mist Form, which we'll get onto again when I go over the skills, and also it gives you the damage reduction. Your resistances go up quite a lot. I'll just do this. This will be, I think it's like 30k resistance, 31k spell resistance, and almost 29k physical resistance. Remember, I have marking on, so if you use a different mythic, it will be a little bit less, but it's still decent. This is on the back bar, by the way. So yeah, it's good. Your spell crit goes up to 29% as well. I don't like looking at the stats. I think it's kind of ultimately pointless, but people love it, so they're in. The skills synergize with the Way of the Fire set. We'll get onto that in a second. The defensive bar is pretty standard. Apart from restoring focus, use the stamina morph. You're gonna need the stamina morph. You're not gonna sustain your stamina unless you use the stamina morph. I even get a little bit of stamina sustain from High Elf. I don't think you need that as much, but I don't know. You might end up having to put 1 triglyph on your jewelry or something like that to make up for the stamina sustain if you're not High Elf. But you're definitely going to have to go stamina rune here. Mist Form. Since it's changed, I quite like it. Major Evasion is really strong, so that's super good. And also gives you a bit of utility because you can streak into your group, heal with Honor the Dead and sort of streak out. You can control where you are and how much damage you can take in a fight a bit more, because you know you've got the option to sort of get away with Mist more easily. So yeah, it's a good skill. You could go Race Against Time if you want. I wouldn't. I would just go Mist. Vigor, must have, gives you Minor Resolve. Extended Ritual, must have, needs cleanse. You need cleanse, sorry. And the heal is really good on this. Honor the Dead, obviously really, really strong burst heal still. Good utility for your group. Keeps your friends alive more situations, more often than you would think. So yeah, just really good. And spell wall, just really good. Just that's your oh shit button, of course. Front bar, this is where it gets a bit weird. Living Dark, this bit isn't weird, obviously. Really big heal. Just keep your vigor up and your Living Dark up at all times. Obviously with your rune as well, you want that up. But for healing, a lot of the time you can just hit vigor and Living Dark and then just go offensive. It's sort of like a ooga booga, stay alive with Living Dark and vigor and then just go offensive. That's what you're going to do. Templar's still tanky despite it lacking damage, so yeah. And then damage wise, so this is where there's ifs and buts. There's reasons this is strong, there's reasons why this is terrible. I think it's the best that you can do with what jabs are like at the moment, because jabs are just terrible. Purifying Light is terrible, Power of the Light is terrible, they just do no damage, they're all terrible. And I think this is actually a surprising amount of damage, and I was surprised with how much damage I was doing and how much killing power I had compared to what I was doing before, which was just endlessly jabbing people and getting nowhere. So Dark Flare is a bashable skill, it's an interruptible skill, and good players will bash it and they will interrupt it. However, when you're playing in a group, and especially in Cyrodiil, when you're often fighting against larger groups of less skilled players or more averagely skilled players, they're not going to be doing that. And the Major Defile is a really underrated part of this skill, and I don't know, people sort of ignore it, but that Major Defile, an AoE Major Defile on what is essentially supposed to be a spammable, is pretty insane. And doing this in the middle of a sort of clumped up group just before your group ults them, and you are going to be playing this in a group, do not play this solo. Like I said earlier, Templar just sucks. You are going to be playing this in a group. That Major Defile is strong. It's really strong. What you're going to do is do a Dark Flare followed by a Crushing Weapon, and that's basically your spammable. These two skills make up your spammable. Don't do one or the other, do them in conjunction with each other. And what happens is that when they hit with Way of Fire, the proc set, which is a really strong proc set at the moment, it's actually a very decent amount of damage. A very decent amount of damage. And for them to stay alive, they're going to have to mitigate it. They're going to have to block it. They're going to have to roll it. Not every time, but at least 1 out of 2-3 times they're going to have to do that. And that's a big stamina drain for them. And that's kind of what makes this quite powerful, is that these 3 things, Dark Flare, Crushing Weapon, and your Way of Fire set being quite a lot of pressure, makes it strong. It's not... You're not going to kill really good players because they'll be able to deal with it. They'll know what to do with it. But you're not going to kill really good players with any Templar build. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. And if you have killed someone with a Templar build, either they've sort of screwed up, or you're better than them. So yeah, that's basically it. So your killing power against a bit... There are some players, like the squishy players in Cyrodiil, you're going to Dark Flare, Crushing Weapon, Javelin, Radiant, and they're dead. And these all kind of hit quite quickly together, because the Dark Flare and the Crushing Weapon will hit at the same time. This is a thing, they all hit at the same time when you Dark Flare and Crushing Weapon, and Way of Fire will all go at the same time. So sometimes you chunk off like half of someone's health in one go, if they all crit. And, you know, the squishies will die quite quickly to this. But better players, what you're going to do is you're going to keep that pressure on. You're going to keep Dark Flare and Crushing Weapon. You're going to wait till they're like half health maybe. Then you're going to Meteor, Javelin, and into the Radiant. Javelin with Meteor means they're always going to at least take the Meteor hit unless they have CC immunity. If they have CC immunity or they take an immunity pot, they will block and they will not get CC'd by Javelin. And they will block the Comet. That's the only way they can mitigate Meteor or Ice Comet, whatever you want to call it. Otherwise, they're either going to block, but you're going to CC them with this because this goes through block, and they're going to get hit by this, or they're going to roll because they're going to roll the javelin and then get hit by this. Better players, if they don't have CC immunity, will roll because it means they only take the meteor rather than taking the javelin and the meteor. But they're still going to take the meteor. And if you time that well and just go straight from the javelin into the radiant, a lot of the times they will die. But you have to be clever with it. You have to sort of wait until they get a bit too thirsty. They go on the offensive. You're pressuring them a lot over time. They're probably low on stamina because they've been having to either roll or block these dark flares and crushing weapons. And that's how you kill people. And that's pretty much the build. CP. Red CP, you're going to go... Okay, let me make something clear. I haven't played... I don't know if there's some sort of secret CP or CP meta bugs on certain CPs that make them strong. I haven't played in a while. I haven't kept as up to date with patch notes as I should have. So CP might be wrong. And if it is, please correct me. Please tell me if there's some OP CP that I don't know about. But as far as I saw, I think this was the best CP for it. I went Peace of Mind, 200 Magicka recovery in crowd control. Immunity is pretty strong. Pain's Refuge, sustained by suffering, survival instincts, pretty standard red CP as far as I'm aware. And then blue, I've gone Duelist Rebuff, single target, damage reduction, super important. Nightblade's hit it for a lot right now. Master at Arms, Focus Mending, and Ironclad. I'm even tempted to take away Master at Arms and put it in the healing CP, the Swift Renewal one, because this is 6%, this is 10%. 10% healing versus 6% damage done. 10% is a lot, so I'm kind of tempted to do that. But yeah, you know, if you want to change it around, please do. I'm not the best with CP. And that's it, that's the build. I've ended up taking 17 minutes. I'm sorry about that. Had a lot to say. I thought I would be quicker this time, but I wasn't. Just to finish off, I'm sure there are doubters of this build. I'm not saying this makes Templar good. I'm saying this makes this is the most viable version of Templar, in my opinion. Ranged Templar has a lot of... It's kind of... I mean, for starters, the targeting system in ESO is kind of clunky. And so sometimes your Dark Flare hits one person, your Crushing Weapon hits another, your Javelin hits a different person, then you hit 4 different people between these 4 skills. But if you're good with it, if you're clever with it, if you target the right people, you will do decent damage to them. And you're going to be playing in a group. Don't play this solo. Just don't bother. It's just painful. I'm sure you will get your 1v3, 1v4 against some terrible players, but that, again, doesn't make this build good. It doesn't make you good. It makes them bad. So don't let it get to your head. And that's the honest truth. Sorry to tell you, but that's how the game is. So, yeah, I think that's it. I'd, again, just reiterate, this doesn't make Templar good. This makes it somewhat viable. This gives it a decent amount of damage. And it's way better than Jabs, for sure. I'm absolutely certain of that. Jabs just sucks so bad. It's so bad. And so does Power of the Light. So just get rid of both those skills. Find damage in other ways. That's what this build is about. That's it. I aimed to take 12 minutes. I've taken almost 20. I hope I haven't been too boring. And I will see you in the next video, I guess. See you later. Bye.